Okay, hello, my name is Talia Jones, and here is my presentation on scarification of blood and the amazing and things that we take for granted about blood and what it does for our bodies. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what is the purpose of blood, and what does it do for the body? So blood takes carbon dioxide, which is what we breathe out, and is what is exhaled from our lungs. So when we breathe in oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. And so blood helps us get that oxygen into our lungs. And then additionally, it moves waste materials, hormones, and nutrients throughout our body as well. It also contains blood cells, also excuse me, white blood cells, or WBCs, which are essential for immune response, such as like immunity, and help shield our body from sickness. It also contains clotting factors, which is mean a coagulation basically. So when we get a laceration, cut, tear on our skin and we start bleeding, that is what helps stop the bleeding. And then blood keeps the body's internal environment, which is also called homeostasis, which is the eternal temperature of the body and helps it control that. And it also does any other things like pH balance and fluid volume within our body as well. So, what are the components of blood? What is in our blood? So here on the yellow is plasma. So roughly about 55% of our volume of our blood is made up of plasma, which it contains water, proteins, and includes all these other type of proteins like aluminum, um, fibrogen, and globulins, and all types of things, waste materials, hormones. It contains a lot of things. Um, which is what's inside of our blood, which is needed and it transports. The most prevalent cells in a blood are called red blood cells or RBCs. And they are in charge of carrying carbon dioxide and oxygen. So it carries the oxygen into our lungs, and then from that, the carbon dioxide is released when we breathe out. As well as hemoglobin. So it contains the hemoglobin, which is a protein which is found on the red blood cells. And it's also responsible for binding the oxygen into our lungs and releasing it and allowing us to breathe. And also, the bone marrow produces red blood cells as well. So here is the red blood cells. So this is kind of like a concentration of what our blood will look like. So about 44% is about red blood cells, 55% is plasma, and just that 1% is what we're going to discuss next, which is white blood cells and platelets. So to continue on, as the component of the immune system, white blood cells, which are to protect the body from illness and infections. So just like we would get the flu, our white blood cells are fighting to allow us to reach homeostasis and be back to our normal well-being cells. Platelets, which are also called thrombocytes, which are cell fragments that are essential for blood coagulation. So basically, off of one of the videos we watched this week, they are broken pieces of cells, and they are also which will also help clog and coagulate for. So when we get a cut, it coagulate, and those platelets are what is helping us coagulate. But yeah, so it helps with don't have excessive levels and seals our wounds. So here we have the white blood cells with the purple ish little cell kind of clear on the outside, and then the little white pieces are just basically broken off pieces of a cell, and those are platelets or thrombocytes. So now we're going to discuss the types of blood. So these are very interesting. So there are 4 types of blood, but there are also different variations of those 4 types of blood. So first we'll just discuss type A. So this is type A. So what makes it type A is that there are antigens on top of the blood cells or on the blood cells. So this is genetically, so this you get these from your parents. But yeah, so also it is have anti-B antibodies. So if you try to mix A antigen blood with B antigen blood, it will not mix in so if you're A blood, your A blood white blood cells and will fight against the B blood cells because they're like, this is a foreign because we're not used to having A antigens with trying to mix B antigens. That goes for same with B. So you have type B, which is the same thing. They can't have A because they has A. They can't have AB either because it has A within it as well. And then once again, the other type is AB, which has both antigens A and B. And then you have type O or type 0, which has no anti has no A or B antigens on the red blood cells. So it's considered the universal blood donor just because that it has no antigen, so it can be used for any of the types of blood. And then also we have the Rh factor. So this is a type of protein. You're either positive, you have the Rh protein, or it's a negative, you don't have it. So it's either way. Some people might have the protein, some might not, which is, again, genetics. So the relationship of blood within our body systems. So in relations with the respiratory system, gas exchange occurs between the respiratory system and blood. Carbon dioxide from the tissues is released during exhalation, while oxygen from the lungs enters circulation. So basically, again, it helps with our breathing, and blood exchanges the carbon dioxide and oxygen, and the blood cells are going within through the kidney, stomach, liver, which is the whole endocrine system. Or excuse me, respiratory system, which they are not a part of that. That is lungs and lung chambers and all that. So the endocrine system, which here on the top right, which pretty much the blood carries the hormones for all those glands and different types of organs and the development of everything that is needed through endocrine system. And lastly, our immune system. So here, this is a really detailed version, but I just wanted to just show that this is how the blood is transported within these the immune system, which we know is our natural defense against infections and sickness. Diseases and disorders that associate with blood. So here we're going to go into types of blood disorders more than anything. So here we have anemia. So anemia is is a disorder by lack of hemoglobin or red blood cells. So here on the top right, we have a normal type of blood cell. And then here we have anemia. So there's not as many white blood cells, and not as many red blood cells, which does not have a lot of hemoglobin attached to them. And so that's usually why you have iron deficiencies, vitamin B12 deficiencies, and things like that. And then at the bottom, we have what is called leukemia, which is a type of cancer, which is when you produce excessive amount of white blood cells over and over and over, and it's out of control. So, which is considered a cancer. And then here we have hemophilia, which is a hereditary condition. And it's basically just usually when you have a hemorrhage, you clot and seal up that cell or bleeding area. But with hemophilia, you do not have that ability. And so your ability to clot, and you bleed a lot more, and it's hard for you to clot easier. Then another condition is called sickle cell disease or sickle cell anemia, which causes red blood cells to take an unusual shape. So here at the bottom, it causes them to curve, which decreases the oxygen transport and the amount it can transport just because it gets smaller and shrunk size. And then here we have the thrombocytopenia, which is a disorder characterized by a low platelet count, which I thought was interesting that I never heard of, but it's basically just have low platelet count, and that also affects your ability to clot and stop the bleeding. And then once again, here is my citations. Thank you, and thanks for watching.